how data binding works. So we discussed about data binding, one-way binding and two-way binding. One-way and two-way binding. And we learned data binding using MVC, how data binding works with MVC, and one more by using MVVM. These two approaches, and for MVC and MVVM, for both you need a directive called NG model. But how MVC works, how MVVM works, the difference we learned. Now, after understanding the basic data binding, what is difference between JavaScript and Angular is, in JavaScript we have to depend on lot of DOM manipulations, events and DOM manipulation. So here this MVC, MVVM architecture helps without any DOM manipulation. So we learned basic data binding, how it works. Next, after understanding, now we will see how to manage more complex content in the components, right? For that, you just learned only presentation. So for that, one more point we will see. Here, one example we will see, accessing data from any API and binding to UI. We will see that, how we can do it. Previously, we designed our data and that we are binding with the UI. Because we will, in real-time projects, we have to work with a lot of APIs. So first, we will use the basic ready-made APIs available, and by using that we will practice all the concepts. Later you will learn about how to handle with other type of data. Means how to create your own APIs, how to bind them. In order to create your own API, you need knowledge of any server-side technology like JSP, .NET, PHP, Python, with web services, web API. With that knowledge, you can build your own APIs. We will, for practice, we will see ready-made APIs. We have an API called Fake Store API. So sample API, we have http:// Store API. We have a Fake Store API. This Fake Store API provides some sample data that you can use for your practice. Actually, this API will provide some API methods. This API will provide some API methods. Those API methods will provide some data to you. You can create your data or you can use the data coming from APIs. You have this website. You can visit this fakestoreapi.com. This is the website. This is Fake Store API website. This Fake Store API website, you can see they provide shopping related data. So you can, it's an e-commerce or shopping website. For that, some data they will provide. These are their methods actually. These are the methods. What this method will do is, it will present all the products data. data will be returned in a JSON form. It will be returned in a JSON form. So it provides the data in this way. These are all the methods. First, we will see how to use simple data. Later, we will go with complex, how we can present and work with complex data. So this website, Fake Store website, provides some API methods. Get. It have a method called /products. What it will do is it returns all products. It returns all products. They have approximately 20 products are there. It will return the list of all products. And we have a method, another method called products / you can define any product ID. Out of 20, you can access the products based on ID 1, 2, 3. This returns specific product. It returns the specific product based on ID. And it have other methods like it have the method like products / categories. What it will do is it returns all categories. So many product categories are there. It will return all those categories like electronics, jewelry, like clothing and all these. So they have some data. We will work with this sample APIs. Later I will show you some other APIs also. But first, we will learn how to consume and use the data. Actually, JavaScript provides a promise. JavaScript provides a promise called fetch. I hope you learned in JavaScript. In JavaScript, fetch is a promise. You learned promises and JavaScript closures. You know closures, promises and all. Fetch is a promise type. Fetch is a JavaScript promise. Actually, what this JavaScript promise will do is fetch that can fetch data from any file or URL, which can fetch data from any file or URL and present. So you can fetch the data from any file or URL and present. Actually, you can use this JavaScript promise called fetch. Actually, if you learned more than JavaScript, like if you learned jQuery provides a promise called AJAX. By using AJAX, you can access. I'm not touching that because you know JavaScript. We will compare from JavaScript level. In Angular also, we have separate library to communicate with API. That Angular library we will see later because we have to learn that in a concept called services. Currently, you don't need to use service. Without service, you can communicate with API in Angular by using JavaScript promise. And that JavaScript promise is fetch. So, but if you know Angular services, you can use Angular services for fetching the data. Lot of differences are there, we will discuss. What is fetch is actually, fetch can fetch data from file or it can fetch data from URL. After that, it provides a callback function. Then this callback function actually returns data in binary form. That data is not ready for presentation. So that is the reason you need another then that returns data in JSON. That returns data in JSON. That means whatever data is written in binary form, that is converted to JSON and it is provided to another then. In the second then block, you can have the data in JSON, and that data you can use for presentation. So while using JavaScript fetch, in JavaScript you can use it. If you learned in JavaScript how to interact with API, we use this fetch method regularly. So fetch is used for interacting with the APIs. Now this is the basic syntax action. You know why they are called promises. In JavaScript we call them as promises. Why they are called promises? Because a promise contains callback functions. Callback function means if successfully executed, it will do one task. If unable to execute successfully, it will do some other task. So that is what promise can handle. Depending on the situation, it can handle different tasks. So by using this fetch, we will try to fetch the data, right? Let's see how we can use this in our project. I will create a new component for this. I will add a new component. Let's go to components, and in the components, I will add a new component. ng generate component. Suppose I will give fake store. I will just give fake store. Fake store and skip test. I am creating a component called fake store. Now, in this component, we have to access data from API and we have to present the data. Let's see. Means how we can access the data and present the data. First, it is ready. Let's go to app module, make this in the startup. We will keep fake store component in the startup. In index, we will keep that fake store. So in the index, we have fake store. Okay. Now fake store is running successfully localhost. It's working fine. Now let's go to the fake store TS file. In the fake store TS file, we need to communicate with the data coming from API, and we have to use the data. As of now, I am creating a property. So product ID. This product ID is a number type, and initially it is having 1. That is product ID. And I will create another products. It is an any type object. That means currently we will learn how to fetch one object and display. We will use this method. We will use this API method, that is fakestoreapi.com, and in that we have products/id that will return specific product. That is going to return specific product. So if you want to return any specific product, you can use this one. You can use this. You can test it actually in the URL fakestoreapi.com/products/1 or 2. Now you can see this is going to return one product. and see that product. This product is an what type? It is an object, and it contains lot of details. Lot of details. That object contains so many details. ID, which is what type? Number. Title is what type? String. And description is also a string. Category is also a string. Image also a string. Rating is again an object. In rating again we have rate and count. This is data. There can be more complex data. Other APIs we will see that. Now we know that this URL is returning one object. That is the reason I created an object. Because we know that we are fetching only one object. So for that I created an object. Here it will be ready to access the data from the API. Okay. Now let's go and write one method. So we will write a method called load product. That is the method. What this load product method have to do? This load product method have to communicate with the API, get the data and store in this product. Currently only one product is coming. I will name it as product. Okay. Because as per project standards, we use plural names when collection is coming. When a collection is coming, we use plural names. That means products or students, like that. Only one data is coming, then we use product. Okay. Now what load product have to do? Communicate with the database API, get the data. For that, currently we are using a JavaScript promise called fetch. Fetch is a ready-made JavaScript promise. In JavaScript, you will learn some promises. In that, fetch is very popular. This fetch can fetch the data from API. What is your API? http:// I will use backtick, not single quote. When to use backtick, when to use single quote, when to use double quote, you already know. We use backtick when we are planning for any expression to come in. Because single quotes, double quotes will not allow embedded expressions. In backtick, http:// what is it? fakestoreapi.com. In that, we have products. In that, the ID will be changing. The ID will be changing. Currently, we will access the ID number from this product ID. That means we need to access that and use it here. That means we use a binding expression. Here, how to access any member in a class? By using this dot what product ID. We are accessing the product ID. Now the fetch is not completed. Fetch is a promise. Here what we do? We use then. If then is the function that executes when it is success. When the request is success, the data is returned in binary form. What we have to do is collect the data and convert into JSON. So for that, we use a callback function. Actually, you have to write a function, callback function. But we already know shorthand techniques. You learned arrow methods. In JavaScript, you learned how to write arrow functions. Arrow functions, I will write simply response. Response is a parameter. This response should return the response data into which format? JSON. You learned in JavaScript already. Yeah? This is nothing like confusion or you don't know, because in JavaScript actually this then uses a function. This function actually uses a parameter called response, and that response we have to return in the form of response.json. So instead of writing all this, we are using a shortcut technique. You learned in JavaScript how to write arrow methods. How to write arrow methods? This is response parameter and returns response.json. This is the shorthand technique. That is the shorthand technique. That means instead of writing all this, you can simply write like this. This is called in JavaScript, you call as arrow methods, arrow functions, lambda expressions, and all this. So that is very common in JavaScript, because in advanced programming, we cannot go with traditional lengthy process. You are using JavaScript in advanced technologies, so use in a more advanced way, shorthand techniques. These are the shorthand technique. Okay. So data is written in JSON, but this is not enough. Now, this data we have to store in the product. What we have to do? We have to use another then. This will collect the data which is converted into JSON. After converting that, we will write a function. What this function will do? It will collect this dot product. Into that, it will apply the data. That means whatever data comes, that data will be stored in product. So it is going to fetch the data from API, and it is going to store the data in this product. But remember, you return this in a separate method called load product. You know that methods will not execute automatically. Methods will not execute automatically. You have to call the method. You return a method, it will not execute automatically. When to call this method? To call this method, we have to use onInit. That means when component is initialized, that means it is ready. Later I told you, we will learn about component life cycle. There you will learn all stages, right? By default, every component comes with one stage. What is it? onInit. onInit means when component is initialized. When it is initialized, we will call this function called this dot load product. It will load the data. Actually, I can write all this logic here. But what is the purpose of writing in a separate function? Whenever you want, you can reuse it. For reusability concerns, separation concerns, we write a separate method and we call the method. Generally in JavaScript, what you do, if you want anything to get ready on load, you write a body load event. Generally for body section, you have a load, on load. Here we have onInit load product. Now finally, where is all data? Data is present inside product. Data is present inside product. Now that data I have to present. But remember, what kind of data is present inside product? What type of data is present inside product? That you have to understand by using API. That means product contains this data. I will later tell you, in services we will learn, if we don't know what type of data is coming, how to know the type of data. Because many times in real-time projects, we don't design the data. We just use the data designed by somebody. We don't even know from where it is coming. We just know its URL. We don't even know which database they are using. So for example, you in real time projects, so you learned, you have a class. That class is designed by some other developer. You have to just access that class and use that class. Then how do you know that class contains members? What kind of members that class contains? How do you know? One simple question. You are a Java developer or a .NET developer. You have to use a class. That class is not designed by you. Somebody else designed it, and you have to use that class. If you have to use the class, you should know what are the members in the class, what properties, what methods it contains. You haven't designed. Can you tell me what is the technique called which is used to know the members of class? The technique of knowing about members of a class is known as the technique of knowing about the members of a class is known as, any idea? In object oriented programming, we call the technique as reflection. In object oriented programming, we call the technique as reflection. Reflection. You heard about reflection? Huh? You heard about reflection? Huh? In object oriented programming, Java have reflection, .NET have reflection. What that reflection library is nothing but you provide a class and it will return all the information about the members in the class. What members are there? What type of members are there? C++, Java, .NET, all these object-oriented programming languages will provide a library called reflection. So they provide a reflection library. I think you know that. Otherwise, see, I will just show you here a point. That means actually you have Google, just what is it? Suppose your technology, Java reflection, reflection. You see, we have a Java reflection. The concept of Java reflection is nothing but just some diagram is there I'm showing. If you are working with an unknown object, and what reflection can do is it can get all the information about that object. That means its behavior, its methods, its related information, everything. We call as reflection API. This is reflection API. In Java, you have reflection. In .NET, you have reflection. In C++, you have reflection. Because at high level, you are a developer. You will be using some classes built by somebody else. Right? You are not the person who built the class. Then how you know what members are present? In a training institute, when you are learning, the faculty will train you that this class contains these methods. But in real-time project, you have to use so many third-party libraries. Then who will tell you about the members in a class? Of course, you have to explore their help documentation. In the help documentation, you need to see what members they are providing. Without knowing that also, once you can get the class, you can know its members by using a technique called reflection. Every OOP language have this reflection. So the point is, we don't know the data, then by using reflection, we can know the data. Here also we can do that. Later I will tell you how to know the data. When you are working with services in Angular, I will tell you. As of now, what is the data we are expecting? ID, title, and you have to use in the same capitalization because it is JavaScript based all are case sensitive. Capitalization matters. So let's go to the design now. This is data ready. Data is coming from API. Let's go. And here we will go to HTML. We will present the data. We will present the data. I will do here one thing. I will put a div class as container fluid, and here I will put a heading as product details, and here we will design a div. I'm creating a class called card. You know, Bootstrap have cards. Card, in the card I am designing a div. This is the class card header, and above that we will put an image. We will have a class called card image top, and height I given as some 200. Okay, now after here in the card header we will put a some heading. Okay, and yep. Next we have another div. This is class card body. So in this we will put some paragraph, and I will put here another class. This is card footer. Right, later we will put some content. Actually the design of card looks like this. Actually cards looks like this. This is a card. Actually this is a card style. We are designing a empty card, and here what we are doing is for this card I will keep width as 25, 50 width, padding as 2 padding I am giving some space. The card is like this. Now this is the card. Now what we need to do is, now here I want to display the product name. I need to display the product name. Then we use a binding expression. It is present in a object called product, and what is it? It is having title. You see in API the product have a, in the API product have a title, and I am using that product title here. Okay, now you see here in this shopping the title will come. The data is coming, the product title will come. Actually titles are very lengthy. Better I will use a paragraph. I will just put a paragraph for the titles. So then it will display that in a paragraph. The product title will be in a paragraph. When data is coming from API, it will take some time to get the data from API. You need to wait because API comes from their live servers. Sometimes APIs may not be responding. You have to keep patience. Right, you need to check the website of API. Is it responding or not? Sometimes it will not respond. Right, so here this is header. Okay, I will do one thing for this header. I will put a style height as suppose 150 pixel, so that the header height will be little higher. Okay, like this, because later we will display lengthy products information. The data will come there actually. Right, now here we are displaying title, and above we need to display the picture. You see they have image. Image is having an URL API, so we have to bind that to this image. How to bind to image? Image have a property binding square brace, because value is coming dynamically. So what is the property? SRC. To this SRC property, what is the value you have to bind? Product dot image. Product dot image, and it is going to bind that image and display that image here. That means it will access that product and it will display that product. So it is accessing the product image. Now, product have some description, price, description, rating, so many details are there for the product. So I will do one thing here. So this is suppose 100 pixels. Okay. The height is adjusted. Okay. And in the body, I will display the product details. I will use a data list with the data term. I will put price. How to get the product price? We will use a binding, and here we will use product dot price. So that is going to return the price. Later we will learn how to display in currency format and all, how we can display in all. Current price. Okay. After that, I will use another data term. Here I am using rating. In data definition, here actually you observe rating is price is here. The price is displayed here. And you can see actually in the rating, in this object, rating is again an object. In that rating object, you have two properties. One is rate, another one is count. We need to access them here. I will just put a span. So class is equal to bi star fill. We have star fill and the text success. And below that, we will put here the value as product dot rating dot rate. Product, in the product we have a rating. Rating is having an object. Rating is an object which have rate. And here we are accessing another. I will just put a square brace, and here I will put from how many people that rating is. I will do one thing. I will put in a span again, another span. We will keep another span here. And in this span, we will put here. So this is product dot rating dot count. And I will put here color. Suppose I will put here the color style, color as gray. I will just put a gray color for that content. You see now the details are displayed like this. The details are displayed like this. So we have the product details and we are displaying the product details. You can see the product details. It is showing the details and displaying. Now important is product have lot of details. I am showing only few. I am showing the image, I am showing the title, and I am showing the price and rating. Now like that, 20 products are there. Like that, 20 products are there. I need to watch all of them one by one. So all products can be accessed. This is one product. If I type 2, then second product information will come. If I type 3, the third product information will come. Like that, 20 products information is there. You can watch them. Now how to access them? Not all at a time, one by one. Then what I will do is, here, better I will creep here. Let's go to the footer. I am adding a button. I will put a span class, and here I will give as bi chevron right, left, chevron left. I will give. And I will create another button, and I will put a span and put a class bi and bi chevron right. I am using right. Now these buttons, so I will put a class btn and btn, suppose danger. Here also class btn and btn danger, like this. And you can see these are the buttons at the bottom. We have these buttons at the bottom. We have the buttons at the bottom. So I will just keep here for every button or just this. So margin E as 2. Margin E means margin right 2. That means it will put some gap between the buttons. So this is the product details. That means this is the product details I am displaying. Now what is the point? When user clicks the next button, next product should come. When user clicks the next button, we need to access the next button and display next product. So what should be the logic now? Let's go to the fake store. Now here, this load product is expecting a product ID. It is expecting a product ID. Already its number is 1. Now we will write two functions. One function, one method is next click. One function is next click. On next click, what should happen? I will simply access this dot product ID plus plus. That means the product ID will be incremented by 1. 1 plus 1. Already it is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. After that, it should load product. It should load product. This dot load product. After making it 2, now it will load the product. That means this time the product number ID will be how much? 2. It will get the second one, right? That's it. That's what we have to manage. And when this next click should work, when user clicks on the button, this button, then how to write event? Yesterday I showed you. Events are defined in parenthesis. And what is the event? In JavaScript, we have on click. Here we have to use click. Later, we will have a separate session on events, all events. But situation wise, we will use some events. Click, which next click function, it should be called. That means now what should happen here is when user clicks this next button, the next product information should display. It will have different image, it will have different title, it will have different price and rating. And I click on next product, the next product information will come. That means we can access all the products information from that shopping API. We have a shopping API which contains some shopping data. Currently, we are learning how to access one by one the data. Later, we will learn how to access all, how to filter, how to sort, so many things. Now, the point previous, you know how to do it. So now, what should happen on previous click? On previous click, simple. This dot product ID should decrement minus minus. And again, this dot load product. After decrementing, again load the product. Load product is going to display the detail and show the detail. Now you see this is the next product and this is the previous product. So what is it? We haven't written on button. This should fire up on click. On click. Which one? Previous click. This should work for previous click, right? Now I click on this, next product will come, and this, the previous product will come. We can switch between the products. The next product, it will get all the products information and display. And minus, this is next. Here, some technical issues will be there. We have to handle them. Those issues later we will do by using directives. For example, after 20, I am clicking again next, but there is no 21. then automatically it will show error. Then what we have to do? We have to write a logic to know the length of array, means how many products are there. Then up to length only we need to allow next. Such logics we will implement later. So once you know more about handling, then you can do such logics. This is a simple example of accessing data, and we are accessing the data from fake store API, right? That is a sample API. Like that, so many APIs are there. We will see later. You can try this simple and easy first. Later we can do with complex APIs also. So we are fetching the data and we are displaying the data. And remember, for this, I am not using any special service. I am just using JavaScript promise called fetch. JavaScript promise, we have a promise called fetch, which can fetch the data and return it. Later we can use Angular services also. You will understand difference between fetch and Angular service later, right? As of now, you can do. And in many projects, we use fetch regularly, even Angular also. Even in Angular, we use regularly this fetch for accessing. You see, these fake store people also will give you, when we visit that official fake store website, fake store, you see these fake store people also will give you the fetch promise on. They will give you the fetch promise, right? So in your technology, you have AJAX calls, you have other services, you can use them. By default, JavaScript uses fetch, right? So in data binding, yesterday you saw we were accessing data and displaying from our local locations. We just created some data and using. But now we are fetching the data from APIs, right? This is the basic logic of accessing the data and interacting with the data. This is an example. I will upload this example. So here we have to add a new component. I'm adding a new component, ng generate component fake store. So this is the component we are adding, and fake store dot component dot ts. Here we are writing all this logic. I will copy this complete class. Here we are creating product ID starts with 1 and a product. Why I created like an object? Because I know that data is object type, coming an object. Then we can fetch that and we can use it. So fetch, it returns data in binary. You have to convert into JSON. That JSON you have to collect and store in local. Then we can start using it, right? We can start using it. Now we are presenting that here. So next one, number 3, this is fake store dot component dot HTML. In HTML, we are designing a presentation. This is all the presentation. I used a general card style, which is very popular to present, because every shopping websites will use the card style for presenting the products, right? That's all bootstrap card style. This is accessing data and binding the data and displaying the data. So I showed you 2 methods. You can create your own data and bind it. You can access data from APIs and use it, right? Later we will learn at the end how to create our own APIs example. But actually, to create your own API, you should know some server-side technology and databases. You have to learn database, server-side technology to create your own APIs. I will show you an overview with MongoDB and Node.js, how to create APIs. But until that moment, we will use ready-made APIs, working with ready-made API. Okay, this is ready. We learned how to access the data and display. I showed you a drop down, I showed you a text box, I showed you a checkbox. Now you saw an image, how to bind data dynamically to image. Next important is, after understanding that, in Angular you have to learn about Angular directives. After knowing about the basic data binding, to make data binding more effective, you need to learn about directives. We have to know about directives, Angular directives. I already explained one basic point, but now we see more. What is a directive? As I told you, if you remembered, a directive makes the static HTML element into dynamic. A directive defines metadata, which is used by compiler to understand what kind of component it is, right? Actually, directive is nothing but directive is a function. Technically, directive is a function that can handle various functionalities. Directive is a function that can handle various functionalities. What are those functionalities? Is, so it can extend markup. Second, it can return markup. And third, it can make markup more interactive and responsive. So a directive can do a lot of things. A directive can return markup, a directive can extend markup, and a directive can make the markup more effective. Actually, Angular directives are classified into following types. We have a lot of different types of directives in Angular. We have structural directives. We have attribute directives. We have structural directives, attribute directives. We have component directives. In Angular, directives are mainly classified into three. We have structural directives, we have attribute directives, and we have component directives. Directives in Angular are mainly classified into three. What are these? What is difference between these? What are structural directives, attribute directives, and component directives? First, we will start with structural. Directives. Yeah. We will start with structural directives. What is the role of structural directives? How they work? Actually, structural directives are nothing but these are the directives. Directives used in Angular. So used in Angular to control the DOM structure. These are the directives used in Angular to control the DOM structure. DOM structure means adding elements into DOM dynamically, removing elements from DOM, adding elements into DOM, removing elements from DOM, and updating data into elements. All such activities are done by structural directives. Actually, In JavaScript, how you do? Adding elements, removing elements, updating data into elements. In JavaScript, to do that, you need lot of DOM methods. In JavaScript, you need lot of DOM methods to add an element into page, to remove element from the page. Actually, if you have learned JavaScript already, you know that in JavaScript, how to create an element dynamically. We use a method document.createElement. How we can add an element into another element by using append child, or by using append. These are all JavaScript methods. That means you already learned in JavaScript how to create element and add that element to page, how to remove the elements from the page, how we can update data elements into the elements. These are the frequently used methods. By using these methods, we create elements, we add elements into the page. But now Angular can manage this. Angular can manage this by using directives. We call them as structural directives. That means earlier JavaScript very lengthy. JavaScript is very lengthy, very complex. For example, I will show you. Means, because if you know already JavaScript, you know the pain of JavaScript, means how it makes everything very complicated. And now in Angular, it will teach you how it is more very simple. For example, suppose see, I have head section, I have a script. Okay. Now I have a body section. In that we have an ordered list. Now in the script, I have an array called categories. So we have electronics, we have footwear, like this, some fashion. Now I want to define on load, body load. Now what I want to do is, I want to add these categories into this ordered list. Whatever categories are there, I want to add the categories into ordered list. You know, you learned in JavaScript how to do it. That means I will put here categories, and currently the categories are empty. So we don't have anything here. The categories are empty. How to add anything into page? You learned in JavaScript that, so we are using a function body load. In JavaScript, what we do, first we read for var item of categories. That means we are reading every item from collection, and this item must be added into ordered list. To add anything into ordered list, you should have a list item. Generally what we do, we create a list item, document.createElement. By using create element, I have to create a list item. After that, that list item, li.innerHTML, in that we have to send this data. After that, this list item must be added into ordered list. Document.querySelector, into this ordered list, we have to append child. We have to add that list item. This is the technique how we do. We have to create an element dynamically. We have to add data into element dynamically. We have to append this element into the page. Now you see, it is going to display that here. So we are creating an ordered list dynamically. We are adding the elements. We are configuring the elements. This is what JavaScript is. Suppose if I have to add this, into a table, then it is more complex. Because in a table, if you cannot add anything directly, you need a group like T head, T body, T foot. In that group, again, you need a row TR. In that row, again, you need a TD. So first you have to create a TD, add data into TD, add that TD into row, add that row into body. So much lengthy. This is all the problem you have faced in JavaScript. Anybody who knows JavaScript, he knows this problem. Hundreds of lines of code we have to write to dynamically control the elements. But now it is easy. Means almost in all JavaScript interviews, they ask how to create a table dynamically, how to create an image dynamically. These are very common things. Now this work is very much simplified. This work is very much simplified. So adding elements, removing elements, managing elements, we can do by using structural directives. Structural directives can easily handle that. And Angular structural directives are, in Angular, the structural directives we have ng if. It is a structural directive. We have a structural directive ng switch. It is a structural directive. We have a structural directive ng for. These comes under the category of structural directives. We have three major structural directives: ng if, ng switch, ng for. Let's see how they work and what is the purpose of these directives. One by one, we will see all the directives. We have structural, we have attribute, and we have component. And the structural directives, these three. So ng if, ng switch, and ng for. What is the purpose of this? It's very simple. Let's see what ng if directive can do. Actually, it is a directive. It is a directive used to add or remove any element from page dynamically. To add or remove any element from the page dynamically, we can use ng if. Not show and hide. It is adding element and removing element. You can add and remove element dynamically by using ng if. Actually, ng if is a Boolean type. Is a Boolean type. ng if is a Boolean type. That means it uses a Boolean true or false. ng if uses a Boolean true or false. That means technically, so how to handle this ng if, I will tell you here. Syntactically, we have an element. Now to this element, we use ng if. But very important, you should know one more point here. I will tell you that point above. Structural directives are added to any element by using asterisk. They are added to any element by using asterisk. Structural directives are added to any element by using asterisk. So here we have to use ng if asterisk. Asterisk ng if is equal to, it will take a Boolean value. It will take a Boolean value, or it can take a Boolean expression. A Boolean expression that returns true or false. That means it can be a direct Boolean value, or it can be a Boolean expression. Boolean expression means true or false. True or false. Let's see here. Means how we can handle this, how we can manage this, how we can use this ng if. What is the purpose of ng if? The purpose of ng if is to control the display of element in the page. Actually, it is not display. In many interviews, they ask you, what is display? What is display none? Difference between display none and actually they will ask you, what is ng if? because ngIf is also hiding and display none also hiding. Then what is difference? Actually ngIf is not hiding, it is removing. That means if it is not necessary, it will not keep in the page, it will remove from the page. That will be better because it will improve the performance of page, right? Let's see. For example, in this example, means the example that we designed, this every product have another description. Every product have a description, but that description is not here. I am not showing the description. Description, if user wants, he can see. Optionally, description, if he wants, he can see. So what I will do here, see, here I will put another button. I will put another button and class as BTN and BTN suppose success. And I will put here, so as view details of that particular option. So here I will put a span. So class BI, some BI, suppose note, suppose I will give as we have an option called I, okay, I fill or something. You can see view details. I have another here is margin and is 2, okay. You see some space will be there, and here it is displaying view details. When I click on this view details button, this product details description should come. View details or view summary, something like this. Now, very important is what I am doing here is, let's create a container. Let's create a container div. And I will put an ID for this container as, or class for this container as description. Description is the class, that is only CSS. Here I will put a product paragraph, and we will access product dot description. I will use product description. You can see here, so the product description, you can see the product description comes below. Actually, this is a small paragraph about that product. Some paragraph is coming. What I will do is, I will go to the CSS file, fake store CSS file. I will access description class. In that, I will put position. Position I will keep as fixed. And I will put right position as some 50 pixel, top position as 50 pixel or 100 pixel, and here I will put border as, so 1 pixel solid, so and black something, and I will put padding as 20 pixel, and I will keep width as some 200 pixel or 250 pixel. So, and you see actually description comes here. You see the description of the product comes here. I can move it little bit, text align is justify, and from right I can move it some 250, then it will be little bit moved here. This is the description. What I will do is, that area I will keep as a heading for description I am giving, and this is the product description it is coming. Product related description we are showing, but I want to show it only when user clicks view details. That means I don't want it to display. I don't want it to display, not displaying. I don't want it at all. Because if you keep it and hide it, it will be in the page. Then it will be still heavy for page, because page have to load it. right? I don't want it. I need to remove it completely. Then see what we are doing here is for this description, we are adding a directive ngIf. ngIf uses a boolean value. I used true. When ngIf is true, I'm just using a boolean true, and you see it is there. I'm using so boolean false, and you can see it is not there. That means what is the role of true and false? True will add the element and false will remove the element. So what ngIf does? So boolean true will add element into page, and false will remove element from page. We will see that element is removed or not, right? And you can toggle this now because it is true or false. That means here true will add element and false will remove the element. What I will do now here is I will use a simple logic. In this fake store, what we are doing here is we will create another property. I will keep all properties at place. I will keep a property is visible. Is visible what type? Boolean type. I will keep by default false. Is visible, I will keep it as false. And I will use this is visible here. Means I will not directly put false. I will put is visible here. Is visible is having false, so it is not showing. It is not showing. Now when user clicks this button, view details, then I have to show it. Then what we will do here, I will write a function. The function is toggle details. Toggle details function, what it should do is it should access this dot is visible. Here we will write a simple logic. So if this dot is visible is equal to true. If it is equal to true, if it is equal to, by default it is false now. If it is false, we will set it to true. Otherwise, we will set it to false. This is a ternary operator. That means if it is true, it will set to false. If it is false, it will set to true. And it will store that inside this is visible. This toggle details should work here. That means here I will put as show hide details. We can change that button word also. I will tell you. Currently, I am just giving show hide details. Okay. Now here on button click, we have to use, what is it? Toggle details. This is the method to fire up. Now what this method have to do is, when I click show hide details, it should show the description. And click this button again, it should hide. That means you click, the details will come, and again click, the details will hide. Of course, you can change button text also. That means if it is show, you can say hide. If it is hide, you can say show. That is the part, that's general thing. What you can do now here, I will use another option. I will say button text. Button text is a string type. Into that, I will display show. Button text is show. Now when user clicks this button, what should happen? This dot button text should be, if this dot button text is equal to show, it should be changed to hide. Otherwise, it should be displayed as a show only. We need to change this. If it is show, it should be hide. If it is hide, it should be show. Now here, this button text must be displayed here. That means I will not use this. I will just put a binding expression. Here I will use button text. That means by default button text will be saying here show details. And I click show details, it will change to hide details. Button text is changed. This when I click on it, it will hide. Again, we show details and we hide details. This is toggle. And you observe here, right click, go to inspect. In inspect, you observe here. In inspect, the description area, this is the description area, right? That is the description area. Observe the description area. I will scroll here. Actually, this is the description area where it will display. I click on show details. You see the description area added here. This is content. Am I right? This is content. You see this content contains description. You see the description will come here. This is the area. Description area is coming. That means it is showing the description area. I will click hide details. When I click hide details, the description area is removed. That means you see there is no description area. Div is not there. And when I click again show details, it will be added. A new div is added here. This div is removed. When I click hide details, that is removed. That means it is not showing and hiding. It is adding and removing. Means generally, many times when you've done this in your JavaScript, you may have used display hide, display block. That is not a good idea because a large portion of content showing and hiding doesn't affect the performance. So we need to remove if it is not necessary and add whenever it is required. And ngIf can do that. So ngIf is a structural directive, and this is responsible for adding and removing elements from the page, right? So which element you want to add or remove, that element should be kept with the ngIf. And ngIf will take a Boolean value. You can directly supply the Boolean value, or you can supply through a dynamic which will change according to situation, right? This is basic how we can handle. So this is another example, same example. In that example, we made some changes. I added extra description, and user can show or user can hide the description. You can put it for image, any container. I want to hide image, show image. I want to hide details, show details, all such things we can manage. Remember, for every product, the description also changes actually. For every product, the description is different. For every product, the description is different. That product related description will come. That means that is also dynamic data only. But what happens now? When you click hide details, it will hide it. And show details, it will show. You just kept it show and click next, it will be changing. Description will be changing according to the product. According to the product, right? So this is same example, extra. We added a description area which can control dynamically. We can manage dynamically. Now in this same example, I will upload, right? The fake store. Now in this, you have learned only if, but you know that generally if contains various forms. When you learned about if in your JavaScript, if have a condition, this is simple if. How to define an alternative? We have to use else. How to define multiple alternatives? We use else if, right? There are so many things about conditions that similarly here also we have some if related options, but different. You have just learned how to use a simple if. We will see with alternative, how to handle alternative, but here it is different. And when to use alternative and handle it, right? That we'll see next session. Tomorrow we'll do that, right? Tomorrow we will discuss all the various forms of if, different forms of if. In how many ways we can use if. This is simple if. if with else and if with other techniques, we will see how to handle. Tomorrow we'll continue. Okay, right.